morning and welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast. My name is William Hemsworth. As always, I thank you so much for joining me. We're moving along in the Gospel of Matthew. And just for anyone that's new to this podcast, the whole goal of this show is to go through the Bible verse by verse. And we're starting in the Gospel of Matthew, and once we're done with the New Testament, we're going to go on to the Old. But today's verses we're going to look at are Matthew chapter 2, verses 17 and 18, which state, Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled, because they are no more. So this is an interesting passage as Matthew applies a prophecy from Jeremiah chapter 31 into this story of Jesus' childhood. So basically what we see here is what we call, in theological terms, it's called typology. So Matthew is quoting from Jeremiah 31:15, a prophecy about the exile. You see around 580 BC, the Israelites were in Babylonian captivity. The temple was sacked. They were taken away from their homeland. That's when Jeremiah was written. And so Jeremiah uses the imagery of Rachel weeping for her sons, Joseph and Benjamin, to describe the sorrow of Israel at the time of the exile. Now, in the next section of that prophecy in Jeremiah, he foresees the return from that exile, a new exodus. And here, Matthew's use of this prophecy portrays Jesus as a new Moses. Again, we've talked about that in the past couple episodes, how this is a theme in Matthew, how Jesus is the new Moses. So, Jesus is the new Moses who fulfills the prophecy of a second exodus. And like Moses, Jesus escaped slaughter as an infant, and also like Moses, he is sent to rescue God's chosen ones. So that's kind of a very interesting correlation there that I think we look over. Now, this prophecy also mentions the town of Ramah, and that's about 5 miles north of Jerusalem, and it's not far from Bethlehem. And it's along the road to Bethlehem that Rachel was buried, and we see that in Genesis 35:19. And this is also the road that the Israelites were led on during the Babylonian captivity. So there's a little background on these couple verses. There's a lot to go over in them. But then, again, we see Matthew's linkage of the Old Testament and the New Testament, showing that Jesus is the person, the Messiah, that his people, the Israelites, were waiting for. And Matthew expertly links up the Old Testament prophecies that the Israelites would have been familiar with to do so. God bless you guys. Have a great day. Hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Daily Bible Podcast. Join me tomorrow as we go into verses 19 and 20. We're moving right along in this gospel. Hope you've enjoyed it so far. I hope you've learned a lot. I know I've learned a lot just in researching these episodes. So God bless you guys. Have a fantastic day.